Welcome to Our Power is Within. I'm your host, Chazmith, and my mission for this podcast is to inspire you to take your power back and realize that you are the healer you've been looking for all along. I believe we are all capable of healing in mind, in body, and in soul. So today starts the 4-week mini series called Living in Joy. So we will be exploring what that means to live in joy. We'll be exploring what the definition is of joy for each guest, what it means to live in joy, how we create joy in the midst of pain, suffering, and symptoms. And I hope that what it will do is give you some insights and ideas for how you could begin to navigate your healing journey in a way that feels really aligned, authentic, and in joy. I hope you enjoy it. Love feedback. Reach out if you have any. If you have any other topics you want me to approach for a series, let me know. And as a reminder, I am officially teaching a movement class, my playful movement class, where I am helping people to create safety with movement and exercise for the Healing Dudes. So I'm really excited about that. If you're not familiar with the Healing Dudes, today's episode is actually Joe, who is one of the founders of the Healing Dudes alongside Josh. And I think it's a fun one. I really like it. I think you'll enjoy it too. It's short and sweet. And then that gives you guys time to listen and then go back out and live your life. Love you all. Enjoy. Joe, welcome. Thanks for being here with me again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So excited. So for those of you listening, Joe is one of my friends who I've met through this community, but he is also one of the founders of the Healing Dudes. If you haven't heard of it, you should check it out.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Joe is partners with Josh, and they have a basically an ongoing program, mind body healing boot camp, that they help guide people through their healing experience in a very simplified way. And we also call it the Heal Club.
Yeah, the Heal Club.
And what's really exciting, if you've listened to the past couple episodes I've released, we are partnering up and doing a collaboration where I am going to be bringing movement to the program and teaching people that are members of this program just all types of different movement and creating safety with movement and exercise again. And yeah, that's my passion. If y'all been around for a while, you know I geek out and talk about this stuff all the time. So now I get to share it in a whole new way with these guys, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it too. It's been one of our pillars, for healing is movement. And while we talk about it often, we don't teach it enough. So I think it's going to be really cool to have you leading class in multiple ways, teaching movement. So super excited for that.
So excited.
Yeah.
Okay. But in the meantime, today I have you on the show because you are part of my mini series called Living in Joy.
Yeah.
And so where we're going to start with that is simply having you just tell me what your definition of joy is.
Yeah, for me, it's just kind of like living what lights you up and what brings you peace and purpose in life, things like that. And it's not always a huge thing. It can be anything little to big, but I think for me, it's just what gets me out of bed in the morning, what makes me want to live, what makes me, find purpose in my life. That's sort of what brings me joy and what I feel all about. So,
So for you then, to live in joy means
Yeah.
to have a purpose and a drive to get out of bed, something bigger and something that's exciting that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's for me it's always been, what do I want to do in my life? What do I want to create in my life? Aside from just, I want to heal. I want to get better. I want to do all these things. Like what do I actually want my life to look like as I heal and as I get better, and then take steps. Like that's what brings me joy in multiple ways. And like I said, sometimes it's small things. Sometimes it's just simply going out for a walk that helps me be more present and grounded in reality and stuff like that. And then sometimes it's working on, a long-term goal that I feel passionate about, whether that's stuff with the healing dudes, sometimes it's hobby stuff, sometimes it's creative endeavors that I just find that are hobbies of mine that I always want to pursue and create and stuff like that. And then sometimes it's just, activities. I know for you it's like you love pickleball right now. Like joy for me, a simple, thing is skateboarding every single day. I go out and like cruise on my skateboard, and those type of things. So it's kind of a mixture of all sorts of things, but ultimately, I think what mostly brings me joy is feeling that sense of purpose in life, and creating things that I feel passionate about, you know.
So when you go to sleep at night and you kind of reflect on your day, what
Mhm.
would your day have felt like in order for you to feel like you really lived that day in joy or purpose?
Yeah, this is something that I do every night anyway. I do my journaling, my gratitude journaling, and things that I reflect on in that day that I believe went well. And it's something that we have in our journal, that we created. It's, each day it's your daily gratitude and then sort of daily achievements or things that you pursued. And for me, it depends on the day. Every day is completely different. Some days, when I've been in a flare or dealing with more symptoms, it's simply just feeling more peace in my body, even while going through these things. And even if that's today, I just simply got out and did my best. That's a reflection of, living in joy versus living in, fear or stress, and things like that. But most of the time it's about living with, my values. So, something that I teach and something that we talk about is on the healing journey is to live in your values versus live, focused on healing and fear and all these things. And this is something that I learned a lot with, I don't know if you ever heard of this, Chaz. It's called the acceptance and commitment therapy. Have you ever heard of it? Okay.
No.
It's one of my favorite things, one of the things that really helped me heal in the past and still something that I use right now. Anyways, I'll just break it down real quick, because it'll tie this in. So acceptance, we all know what that is, kind of like radical acceptance of where I'm at. I feel like whatever I have symptoms, I'm not where I want to be, but instead of fighting against it, being okay right now. This is okay. I don't need to shift this right now. The commitment piece is acting on your values, regardless of where you are currently. So, accepting the situation at hand, and for a lot of people that are chronically ill, you have a lot of symptoms that are debilitating and you struggle with, and accepting that, but not letting that dictate and control your actions and behaviors. Instead, acting on your values. So for me, values are, okay, I want to find some peace and some joy today. How can I do that regardless of where my symptoms are? For me, like I said, doesn't matter how I feel. I will hop on my skateboard and cruise down the park that I always go to that you know about, regardless of how I feel. That's acting on my values. And for me, it's like instead of staying inside and just moping and complaining, it's like how can I, bring symptoms or things with, bring how I feel with me and find things that are going to be, bring me peace. And sometimes just going sitting at the park, putting my hammock up, and stuff like that. And then acting, values based when it comes to long-term goals. Like, is there something that I could do today, right now, that could help me achieve, whether that's a week from now, a year from now, or 5 years from now, something that I really want to create, even if it's just a little piece of whatever, whether it's creating something small or just talking to someone about, what I have as a goal in mind, and just kind of always keeping those type of things as what I act on. Those are like my values. And so like acceptance and commitment therapy. it's not really a therapy. It's I mean, anyone can do it. You don't need to necessarily see a therapist. I actually learned it on my own. Is that it's just accepting where you're at, knowing that it's going to shift when you do the right things, and then acting on your values. What actually do you want to do with your life, regardless of where your symptoms are and how you feel, and doing your best in each moment. And that's kind of how I healed, honestly, a lot in the past before I even really knew a lot about nervous system healing.
Mhm. So, what would you say to a client that their rebuttal is, well, I want to acceptance. I want to be at acceptance, but my symptoms are limiting me from doing the things I think I value or that bring me joy. If they're stuck in that loop where they believe that they can't do the things because of the symptoms, how do you approach that?
Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest hurdles to overcome is the false belief that I'm unable to do these things. So, one of the things that's really important as you kind of go down this path of healing and acceptance and all of these things is to sort of kind of challenge some of those beliefs. Like, am I really as sick as I tell myself? And maybe you are in some ways, but the thing that I've found on my journey is a lot of that self-talk, and that negativity and that stuff is a lot of fears instead of, and it's not actually the truth, and it's self-limiting beliefs. And trust me, if you guys are listening to this, you probably think, well, he doesn't know, he doesn't have my symptoms or whatever. Like, trust me, I've been bedridden sick, and I had to question a lot of my beliefs and my fears around, my symptoms that I thought were limiting me. And when I showed my body safety through action, through acting on my values, as well as doing some of the healing work, the mind body healing work that I do, um, I actually surprised myself, and my body showed me that it was capable of more than I even realized. And this is something that I've heard not just, in our group, but like throughout the healing journey is like, man, when I actually kind of challenged some of those beliefs and those fears and said, I'm not going to let those old beliefs and fears limit me anymore. I'm going to take steps. Again, it's not a like, just push your way through and just, it's a slow process. Um, it's stepping out of that comfort zone of sickness and just trying and just simply taking action in those ways is a step in the right direction. And this is where sometimes there is that resistance from a lot of people when they start taking action, because they feel like, oh no, like my body is not capable of this, and there's sometimes this resistance and that hurdle that they have to overcome. But once they sort of start to overcome it, and once I started to overcome it, I realized that I was capable of doing more, even with the hosts of symptoms that I had, when I was really struggling with like all sorts of things, physical, neurological, cognitive, psychological symptoms. I was able to show my body safety through action, and then my body was like, "Oh, you can actually do a little bit more than you thought you could." And this is what I see often.
Mhm.
It's hard though. It's not a quick thing, and you do have to take slow steps. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So we know that, as you've already mentioned, skateboarding is a really big thing for you. It brings you a lot of joy and peace. When you wake up one day, because I know you still ebb and flow through, really great days and harder days.
yeah,
So when you wake up on a harder day and you're feeling incredibly tired or maybe some pain or whatever, some of your symptoms are just kind of screaming at you.
yeah.
How do you, in those moments, choose to still say, I know I feel the fatigue. I feel my body doing these things, and I'm still going to go take a lap?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is something that I've done uh ever since I relapsed a few years ago. Um I acknowledge and honor my body where I'm at, right? I've gone through some tough times over the last few years where I've gone through ups and downs of healing, whether it was like I get another virus, or there's stress that causes sort of a flare up in symptoms. However, Something that I've learned on my journey, I mean, for me, it's been 20 years of up and down, healing and relapse. Um, Something that I've learned on my journey is that laying in bed and moping and fearing and stressing is never helpful. So I give myself more grace on those days when I am struggling. And I give myself more patience and self care and self love on those days. But I still take action in the right direction of healing. And this is something that I talk about too, with people that we work with is like, on those hard days, when you want to just lay in bed and mope and complain and commiserate, but you choose to not do that. You may be like, oh, you may notice, like I've noticed sometime, and today's a tough day, but then I get up, I'll go for my walk and I'll take it slow and I'll be more intentional on those days versus rushing through things and honoring my body, not in a way where I'm like sitting there complaining about my symptoms or whatever, but like, my body needs a little bit more support today. So I'm going to take it easier today and I'm going to be more slow and intentional with the healing work. But still move my body, still do the things that little things that are going to help me in the direction of health. So, and I have this one little hack that I don't even like the word hacks, but when the symptoms are flaring and the symptoms are more loud, this is something that I learned many years ago when I was struggling just to get up out of bed, asking myself what could go right today. And then starting to envision some things playing out in my body. Like maybe my symptoms could get better as the day goes on. Maybe I could have a good conversation with a friend. Maybe I could laugh and find some joy and some peace in my body even through this. And then I would almost like visualize and envision myself, even in the midst of the struggle, like maybe things get better as the day goes on. And so envisioning like a positive day, even in the midst of that struggle is something that I do.
Yeah, because often we think the opposite, like, oh, oh, this is aching or this is hurting or gosh, I'm doing a lot of fatigue today. If I get up and I go do this thing, then I could crash and then this could happen. And you can go down that negative spiral. But if I said, what if I could get there and it could be like really awesome and I could be so immersed in something that like I don't even notice my symptoms and then maybe later in the day I take a nap, if I need it.
Exactly.
I'll do that all the time. I'll say on my hardest days, I'll say I'm still going to get up and I'm still going to walk around the block no matter how slow it is. And if I'm still tired after I'm done walking, lay down and take a rest, But at least I got up and gave it a chance because I always learned there's sometimes it's like not that you're actually fatigued, but your brain is just stuck in that loop.
Yeah. Yep.
And so often when you go do something that can be a little like not too intensely stimulating, but like a nice walk, fresh air, sunshine, you come back. If you're a little bit more awake and feel better, it's a good chance that you were just stuck in a loop that you were able to interrupt. Versus if you come home and you're still incredibly tired and you realize that you didn't sleep well last night, then it's like, okay, now I'll rest.
Yeah. Yeah, I often talk a lot about what most people need on the chronic illness journey is not more physical rest, but it's mental rest. And
Yes.
sometimes physical movement is actually what gets you out of the loop and the spiral and the commit, the whatever, the stressful thinking and fearful thinking, and out of that loop of negativity and fear. And sometimes physical movement, whether it's just a simple walk or stretching or whatever, can help get you back in your body out of the head. And actually, for me, it's always made me feel better. When I get out of my head, just back into my body, even if it's slow, nourishing movement. And then, like you said, sometimes, I really do need to rest more, and that's okay, but show your body. Like, I'm all for showing your body, okay, we're moving in this direction. And then if your body is like, hey, okay, this is a little bit much today. I do need more rest today. Then you can honor that and listen and rest, lay down. I also love not laying in bed um when I'm in a flare. I will if I'm, like, needing more rest, like, if my body is say I just got a virus or something and certain symptoms are flaring, and this is something that actually just happened, like, last week, I just got a virus, and, like, the last few days, I've been more fatigued lately. And it's like honoring that and being like, yo, my body needs a little bit more rest. Yesterday, I put my hammock up at the park. And instead of laying in bed like most people, like I would have in the past, I literally laid in my hammock for a few hours. I listened to relaxing music. I meditated in my hammock. And then after that, I felt more energized. I kind of took like a little nap in my hammock, but that was my rest. It was not in my bed. And so this is what I, love teaching people and showing people that there are other ways to have physical rest as well that are not tied to your bed or your couch.
It's true. Yeah, it takes a little bit more gusto to get up and, either walk somewhere, potentially get in the car and drive or however, but yeah, it's definitely powerful. For me, it's sunshine. If I feel like I need to rest, I'll often just go lay I take a little, like, patio pillow, and I'll just go lay outside in the sun for a little while and let the sun just, feel it on my body and just, like,
Yep.
close my eyes, but you're so right too about the need is often mental for rest. I know my personal experience is almost it's probably, like, 95% that it's my mental state that needs
Yeah.
rest because, I mean, we're just in a world now that we're so overstimulated. Especially if we're chronically ill and we don't have as much capacity to get out, we've become so reliant on our devices for connection, and it can be a lot. It can be a lot of stimulation, and often we go say, "Oh, I need a rest," and we go sit down or lay down, and then we just scroll, which we're not realizing that we're getting triggered unconsciously over and over, and our mind is just spinning, and that's not rest.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that I've noticed too. In 20 years on my journey of being sick with Lyme disease, healing, relapsing, and getting better, is I can feel it when I'm just simply laying still and not doing anything and using my phone or devices and seeing these things. And I can feel more in my body like, yo, my body actually needs to move right now. Like, even if I'm fatigued, like there's some stagnant energy and I'm kind of looping in my head and I'm seeing people arguing online and stuff like that, and I feel that. Like, I'm a sensitive person, so I feel that in my body. And so, like, prioritizing nourishing things for myself is key. And like I said, yeah, the mental rest is often more of the time what we need, and that's at least what I've always needed on my journey is like getting out of my head. Getting because this brain, it's useful for some things. I don't know about you, but like a lot of people who are chronically ill, it's that negativity bias, like fearing the worst, stressing over symptoms. How long are they going to last? Oh no, what if this hangs around more? Oh no, what does this mean? Maybe there's something I'm missing. And like all that does is cause more stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, and dysregulation in the nervous system. And like that is what needs to be addressed often more than just like let's just lay still.
Mhm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
also just like overconsumption of information, which is what I've just by now people have listened to that episode where I did talk a lot about why I took a hiatus from the podcast, and it was because I had to accept that I felt completely overstimulated with way too much information.
Yeah.
And if I was feeling it, I know other people were feeling it. And I think we all think that we need to keep gathering more and more and more information in order to heal, but we really just need a little bit of science, a little bit of education, and then we just need to do more embodiment.
So true.
So more joy. We just need to do more joy.
Really, I mean, it's really kind of you can break it down into real simple practices, and this is where, what we started, our Mind Body Boot Camp, aka Heal Club, is that healing is not, constantly overthinking, figuring out, I have to do this. Sometimes it's the most simple things, and one of the most simple things for healing is what brings you joy. Finding little things in the moment each day, even if you are stuck and sick and dealing with 100 symptoms, finding little things that bring you joy throughout the day. That's some of the most healing things. Like it really is, more than any, sometimes more than any visualization or somatic practice or, EFT and I love all that stuff. I do all that stuff myself, but sometimes like just finding joy calms and regulates the nervous systems and allows for more healing than some of those other things.
Yeah, absolutely. When you like, if you're having a harder day, do you still always skateboard, or sometimes do you say, today's just a day I'm going to take my hammock out and sit at the park?
Yeah, some days it's just taking my hammock out and sitting in the park. The thing I will do, regardless of how I feel, is I never stay inside all day. That was something that I did years and years ago when I was, sick. When I got sick in 2005 and took up almost 4 or 5 years to get better. But when I was really sick, those first several years, all I did was just stay in bed, stay inside, stay on the couch. Almost became agoraphobic and like a recluse, from society. And so even now on bad days or several years ago when I relapsed, even on those days, I would not let myself stay inside. I don't care if it was raining outside. I didn't care when I was living in DC, if it was 30 degrees and snowing. I would, bundle up, take my mug with me, and even if it was just a short walk, you know, go do that. And now most days I do skateboard, because I'm much further along in my healing journey. But back then, and years ago, and even sometimes now, like say I just like in the fall I had some like gnarly virus. I don't even know what it was. I don't think it was COVID, but I was like sick for like a week or two. Um, the first couple days, I had, like, a fever, so I didn't really leave much, but after that, like, I still went to the park and walked, and I sat along the wall, and I would take my shoes off and stand in the grass and just feel the sun on my face and, things like that. So I never stay inside no matter how bad I feel all day. Sure, I'll leave and then come back, sometimes like I said, and like you said, whereas, like, okay, maybe I do need to just go home and, like, lay down and just veg out, and that's okay for right now, but I also wanna make sure I get out and immerse myself in new environments because, the one thing that I've learned, and I don't know if this is true for you, but if I'm in my house, it gives me more time to focus on how bad I feel, the symptoms, and all of those things. If I'm in new environments, if I'm outside, if I'm, immersed in something different, I'm more present and I'm more outward focused versus inward focused, where like what that seems to be what happens more in the house.
Mhm.
And being that internally focused gives you more time to focus on symptoms, how bad you feel. Whereas if you're like externally focused, you're not focused on all your symptoms. And that's the one thing I learned. So I do not allow myself, unless it's a really, really bad day, unless I'm like having like some crazy virus flare up, I do not allow myself to just stay in the house all day.
Mhm.
I always get out.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. That's a really big thing for me too, is every single day, 365 days a year, with the exception of like a super severe, like, yeah, fever where you just like, you are just something like that where but even the moment I can, I usually still will drag myself out of bed, even if it's just sitting on my patio chair, even if it's in the shade that day, because you might have a fever, the sun isn't going to feel good.
Yeah,
Um, Yeah, that's been one of my big non-negotiables is, like, every single day I do get out of my house, every day, I have to. I if it's the patio, if it's the beach, if it's, like, just only a walk around my block, I always make sure I get outside and breathe fresh air, get sunshine, natural light, you
yeah.
know? Yeah, very big part for me.
Yeah, that simple stuff right there, people often overlook getting out in nature, just getting some sunlight, getting some fresh air, like that is healing. Like that is also healing. We all want the like miracle, program or cure or supplement or whatever. It's like that simple stuff is also very much so healing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's yeah, so
We've covered so much ground in terms of like just life, living in joy, getting, go overcoming the hurdles, getting out even when we're having our worst days. Do you have any final insights or advice or thoughts you want to share with people regarding living their life in joy?
sure, sure. I think one of the biggest things that we can all do as we are healing and trying to get better from a chronic illness is to learn to live better with a chronic illness. And what I mean by that is to not let the illness and the symptoms control and dictate your life. This is the one thing that if there is like this was like the shift for me that ever made me get better, helped me get better. There was a time before I got better where the illness and the symptoms were dictating and controlling my life, limiting my life, and then there was a shift where I said, "That is no longer happening." It wasn't a miraculous healing thing, I was doing the healing work, but I started taking action in life and moving forward as though my body was healing, even when had hundreds of symptoms, even on days. And there was some failures in there, where I would try to go do something and, I'd have to retreat. I would have to come home. But at least the action is the important thing. Taking action as though your body is healing. And some people might say, well, how can you do that? I have a million symptoms and these are so debilitating. What's the alternative? Really, what is the alternative? And one of the biggest steps in healing is becoming empowered on your healing journey and not letting you fall into that victim mode of mentality. And, I was there, I felt that way where it's just like everything has gone wrong. Like everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And what woe was me? And I didn't want to be there. But I realized that was contributing to keeping me sick, and I had to, take stock of where I was keeping myself sick, and then start taking the opposite, approach, which is what do like I said at the beginning, what values do I have in life? Like, what do I want to do with my life, even if I do heal, or maybe, this was a kind of like a dark way to think about it, but it was actually helpful. Like, what if these symptoms kinda linger around for a while? Do I wanna live a life like this for however many years it's been? And for me, it was no, and so I realized the only alternative thing was, "Alright, I'm gonna do my best each and every day and take action on things as best I can." Sometimes it's gonna be easy and sometimes it's gonna be hard, but still living based on those values versus, living in a victim to the chronic illness and symptoms. So that's what I want to encourage people, guys. If you're listening to this, and this is a large part of what we talk about. Sure, we do all the regulating tools and we have our practices just like everyone else. But I think the missing link and the missing piece between people who really start making progress and start healing are the ones that begin to show their body through action. And this is what I've seen in my journey, not just me personally, but I think, Chaz, I don't know if this resonates with you, but like people in our group is like when they do it, they're doing the healing work, they're making some progress, but maybe they're timid to take little steps of action. But when they start doing that, it's like the world opens up for them and they're like, wow, I'm not confined to my bed or my home because of my symptoms. And actually, now that I've kind of brought my symptoms with me, I don't notice them as much. Heard that so many times, like over and over again, and that is such a key empowering thing and actually leads to healing.
I agree. Yes, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, this was fun. I'm glad we got to do this.
me too.
For everyone who's listening, make sure to check the links in the show notes where you can learn more about the Healing Dudes and their program, especially since now I'm going to be teaching movement because I think it's been a theme throughout this whole conversation. It's so important,
Yeah, it's so important.
movement is action. So, yeah, check the links and thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Where I found my light, the fruit became she's all